welcome to the latest edition of Fixed on Racing. This is our fixed odds preview for MonmouthBets. We're going to be traveling all across the country and the world, really, bringing you some great racing over the course of the show. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornital, coming to you from the Brooklyn bunker once again. And we kick on with a couple of guests. The first guy I'm going to bring in, I had the pleasure of meeting a few years ago. We talk fixed odds all the time. He is a true believer in this movement. He's really put his heart and soul into it. I know he's thrilled that it's really coming to fruition now in North America. He is from BetMakers, Dallas Baker. Dallas, how are things?
Pete, always a pleasure to catch up, and always a pleasure with Nick when we introduce him. But mate, yeah, it's a bit sad, isn't it? It's closing weekend at a lot of places, but let's go out with a big bang. And we've got some great bonuses for people who want to jump on a MonmouthBets. Naturally, we're talking about people who are in New Jersey. So if you're not in New Jersey, catch a plane, get on a train, steal a car, do whatever you have to do to get into New Jersey so you can take advantage. Firstly, I'm gonna give you some promos and stuff, but just come to New Jersey to take advantage of how good it is to bet fixed odds on horse racing. And I'm sure once you start doing it, you'll be an advocate of it. But naturally, being closing day, we've got a heap of promos. Our standard, if you're a first-time user and you sign up for the first time, everybody gets $50. You don't have to put anything in. You can just come in, get a free $50 bet with no strings attached, or $50 bets. Use it however you like. $50 bonus bets for any new account holder. Any people who have an account and want to redeposit, put $50 in. There's another $50 there of free bets. Getting the theme, money back the place. All these races that we're pretty much all we're going to talk about throughout this with Nick and Michael and all the other people we're previewing races with. Most of these races will have a money back the place. Again, up to $50. So if you have a win bet, your horse runs second or third, you get your $50 back. So for plenty of offers everywhere. Should just say the caveat with that is those races are finalised on Saturday morning due to, obviously, if it's a very small field, it becomes an absolute strip out for the people who are managing the book on behalf of Monmouth Park. But yeah, so like just check the website Saturday morning to confirm those races. If they remain over 6, you'll still get money back for second. But if they go below 6, there will be no free bet promotion or money back promotion on that. So, but heaps of promotions. But as I said, the main thing is, forget about the promotions, get around fixed odds and get involved in the movement and start really getting into enjoying your punting again.
We're going to bring our guest in here in a minute, but there's just a couple of things to unpack from what Dallas said. I just want to emphasize how cool that returning customer bonus is. We're used to seeing this stuff for new customers only, but an outfit that wants to reward people who play regularly, love that. And then, yeah, it's not as complicated as it sounds, this whole get your money back if the horse shows. It'll all be very obvious on the MonmouthBets website. It'll tell you which positions you're eligible for that.
There's basically a band across the top of every race that you go onto, which will say if it's available or not, and if it's available for first, second, or third, or just second only too. So if you can read the website, you'll be able to see clearly that that's available.
Just a fantastic opportunity to get some collections and keep things going. Now, we're going to bring in our first guest on the show, guy who is across racing all over the country, but has this particular fondness for the Jersey Shore. And you read his work on New York over at our InTheMoneyPodcast.com. He works in a lot of industry roles as well. He's also a bit of a gadfly on the Twitter. On X. He is Mr. High, Wide, and Handsome himself. Nick Towero. What's going on, Nick?
Jack of all trades, master of none, right? That's the angle I'm going for. I figure if I try enough, eventually I'll be good at something.
We all have that danger in the horse racing business. It's very rare you meet somebody in this game who has only one job. I'll agree with you on that. Nick, it's been a profitable and fun season at Monmouth. Obviously, we're down to closing weekend. I know you have a bunch of thoughts. We're going to start off in race number 2. Do I have that right in my notes?
Yes.
So we've got Jersey breds here. Interesting for these Jersey breds, a lot of whom, there'll be a few more opportunities to run at the Meadowlands, I suppose, but a lot of these are getting into quite possibly the end of their season. Here they're going 1.70 miles on dirt. We have that field of 8 slated to go postward. What did you like in here?
I thought this was an interesting spot for a horse that could be a decent enough price, and that's the 7 Crafty Don. From a class perspective, this horse is taking an enormous drop, coming from a 2 other than back down the class ladder to this non-winner of 1R restriction, which it's non-winner of 1 New Jersey restricted race. And of course, if you look closely at his past performances, he won at this level 3 starts back, and he's only eligible for this race because he's in for the $15,000 tag. And of course, without digging too much and getting into too granular on that, what you notice is that going back to January of 2023, he was claimed for 7,500. So they're long out for this horse's claim. They've made money. He has paid for himself many times over this year, and they're willing to lose him for 15,000 if somebody wants a Jersey bred at the end of the season. So I thought it was kind of a sneaky class move from connections that have had some success at Monmouth. He also spent the majority of his last start on the rail. And one thing that you've definitely heard me say to you and me bring up in our conversations on the network about Monmouth is that you have to be very careful on the main track about being glued to the inside. It's generally a place where you want to be a path and a half off the rail. So I thought he kind of took the worst of it last time. This just seemed to me like an opportunity where the favorites were vulnerable, and here was a horse that you could take a shot with at maybe 4 or 5 to 1.
Move ahead to race number 6. We've got open allowance types here. We're going 6 furlongs with a field of 9. Race that doesn't appear to have a whole heck of a lot of pace in it. Dallas, let's start with the market on this one. Who did you make favorite, and why?
Buffalo, $2.50. And we're going to have a look at the replay, which I think a horse that's had 2 runs from 2-year off and has done very well. It probably picks itself as favourite, but I'd be interested to see Nick's opinion on this. Obviously, $3.50 or 5 to 2 in the fractional. Amity Road is $4.40 or 7 to 2, and just beat the odds and all about money on the next rung at $5 or 4 to 1. Pete, I mentioned we'll have a look at a replay here, and our first of the day, I should say. And this is Buffalo. It's coming on. This was its second start off a 2-year break. And, horses early in their preparation, as you can see here, it hasn't had an easy time in front, but it's been able to do the job in the end, as we'll see as we watch the closing stages.
With Amity Road, who's weaving in between rivals, now secures the 4th position. Mundo Mix is trying to make up for that slow start. Mr. Penny Pincher returned the ring. Just got shuffled back, is losing some ground. Also, Hot Love is rallying on from the back end of the field. The 2 trailers, that's Jonas, Round on Kern, and I'm on Fire. To the inside here, it's Buffalo and on the come up. They're head and head as they approach a 1/4 mile left to go. Towards the outside, here comes Tap First, has got to run with Amity Road. That's the 4. Then comes One Whirlwind Ride, who's trying to hang in here for the fight, is there in 5th. Hot Love with some late momentum. It's still Buffalo in front. Tap First and also Amity Road. They travel as a pair, and here they come. But Buffalo is still there. Buffalo is up by a length. Amity Road is right in behind this leader. Buffalo is clearing off. Buffalo gets the victory. Amity Road second.
Nick, I guess the question for you, are you with or against this favorite?
Pete, I was a little worried about this horse's last race. Drifted out a tad late. Comes now first off a claim for Dan Ward, who took over the barn that belonged to Jerry Hollendorfer, his longtime boss. And when Jerry Hollendorfer relocated back to Southern California, Dan Ward took over, and he's done fine. He's hitting at an 18% clip. He's winning about as frequently as Hollendorfer was during the regular 2022 Monmouth meet. My concern here is that I'm always leery of horses claimed off of high percentage trainers when it looks like they've probably peaked form-wise. And it just feels to me like Buffalo might have done that with those last 2 starts. I mean, if you're a buyer speed figure user, they're the fastest 2 races he's ever run by a mile. And the likelihood that he duplicates that, now I really should say duplicates it again, it seems low. And it seems like something you want to bet against. He would be in the fixed odds lingo, he would be one that I would be willing to take on at a relatively short price. And I actually like All About the Money. Now, I will admit, and I have opined on the platform once known as Twitter before, I am right about David Jacobson about as often as there's a lunar eclipse. So the likelihood that I get him right in this spot is extremely low. However, I have to try because I do think that this horse comes out of a better effort at Penn National than you would normally expect for a Grantville race. This is also a horse who has some form at Monmouth that looks pretty good in that second place finish, beating a nose back in June. I thought he faced a tougher field 2 starts back. Coach Adams was third in there. He, of course, was a repeat winner. He's a horse that's been winning races at Monmouth. It seems like 2 Olympics worth of races. He's been running there for years. So I thought All About the Money could be a little interesting from a little bit off the pace. I felt like the race flow might be in his favor as well.
Let's go to race number 7, claiming race, 16,000, mile and a 16th on the turf. Big full field in this one. Let's head right back to you, Dallas, for a sense of the market in a race that looks like it might have been a little tricky to price up just from how competitive it seems to me.
Yep, Triple Start is your favorite. It is pretty much, yeah, it's pretty congested, but Triple Start is your favorite at the $3.50, at the $4.50 mark. 7-2 is your favorite. So that's a pretty high bar to start with from a favorite. Next in line at 4-1 or $5 is I Lucked Out. Half a roll over that, no, it's not a half a roll over that. A half a dollar over that is Larger Than Life at $5.50 or 9-2. And yeah, plenty of others. Proven Hopes, $7. Bramble Blaze, $9. Very competitive race. Be interesting to see how Nick sorts this out. But Bramble Blaze, this was a very interesting run, Pete, and I think one that's very good to highlight on the tapes. Show it now that you can see that it gives it a bit of a yeehaw down the back off a pretty decent tempo. And he circled the field, contested the lead, basically setting itself up to be run down. And basically, and that's and you will see as people can watch the tape, that's what's happened. But a pretty tough effort considering what happened down the back. Have a look.
46.66 that half mile time. And I Lucked Out at 9-5 is trying to take him into the far turn and take him all the way. Chief Engineer is rallying up on the outside, and here's Bramble Blaze at 20-1. 3-wide move from Bramble Blaze as these front 3 start to get away. Trying to run on is show him the lights from the back end of the field. Sterling's Gold is looking for room at the rail. It's Bramble Blaze and Matty Martin. They're ready to challenge I Lucked Out, who fights on towards the inside. Chief Engineer is back to third. Here's Bramble Blaze at the top of the lane. I Lucked Out is back to second from the back, trying to run on to Sterling's Gold. Most Wanted Man is running on as well. It's Bramble Blaze for a final 16th, but they're getting closer. Most Wanted Man is in search for the victory. Bramble Blaze, Most Wanted Man. Bramble Blaze, Most Wanted Man.
This, to me, is the classic Andy Beyer trip angle of a horse moving into a hot pace. And a lot of people will question the end. You'll hear people say sometimes when you see this, oh, they hung. I don't think necessarily. When you make that move into the fast pace, you can look pretty weak late, but with a better time ride next time out, you can do a lot better. Will Bramble Blaze do any better, Nick, or do you like something else in here?
I mean, I have to bet Bramble Blaze in here. There's no alternative. The problem, and I'm insane to begin with, and the definition of insanity is doing the same things over and over and expecting a different result. And the 7-pound bug, who was on this horse last time, is back on. So what you're hoping is that hopefully she learned her lesson and is going to pull the trigger at a little bit more of the right time. But this horse's last race, I mean, we've just gotten to see the replay, and I can't really understate how well this horse ran. I mean, this was a huge effort in comparison to anything he had put forth really in quite some time. And using pace figures as a guide, I mean, this horse was 40 to 50 points faster early than he had been in any of his last 9 races. So to expend that much energy early and then make this wild move to get to the front before being run down late, missing by a neck, I understand why Mike Deeney's a guy who 2 years in a row has started off this Monmouth meet very, very slowly, but then picked up gradually as time's gone by, including this year. He's up to 9 wins. This horse is getting in at 110. That's a huge weight break. I get it, but you also wonder how much they're giving up in terms of experience and maybe the ability to time a move a little bit better. With that said, I can't resist a horse like Bramble Blaze off that kind of running line.
Sounds like we're making it a chorus for Bramble Blaze in there. We'll move on to the featured race at Monmouth. 2-year-old stakes action in the Smoke Glacket with 100,000 in the pot, going 6 furlongs, 9 runners signed on. What are we looking at in terms of the market for this big one?
Bookham Dano is your favourite, Pete, 5-2 or $3.50 on the decimals, just ahead of Shade the World at 3-1 or $4. And next in line, Boccarino at 4-1 or $5. And that's the way the market is. Next in line, C Streak, $7.
Let's watch this tape of Bookham Dano while I ask you a cheeky question, Dallas. Did they have Hawaii 5-0 in Australia?
We had it, mate. Of course we did. Come on, we had. We've got electricity down there too, mate. It's amazing.
I was going to say they have running water also.
Only came on a few years ago, but it was a godsend.
It's only when the beer ran out.
Anyway, here's our Bookham Dano.
Here comes
I think as everyone will see, a very professional debut.
There's TV Man, and after the trouble, Leprechaun is the trailer. They reach the top of the stretch, and here comes a big run. It's Bookham Dano who's ready to challenge him. Bookham Dano goes right over to the rail, and Bookham Dano is now 2 lengths clear. Challenging towards the inside here is Electric Eel, who battles on with Legendary Thunder, but they had those punishing early fractions, and Bookham Dano.
I mean, when you can, the stalk and pounce is an incredible tactic in racing. You know, when you have that tactical speed to stay in touch and then can motor past. Let's see if we think that run is going to translate to stake success. Nick, where do you stand with Bookham Dano and all the rest?
Yeah, this is where I landed. You know, I like at this stage of the game, not only horses that have gone something close to the distance of the stake race, but have also shown the ability to sit off the pace. I think that's just a huge angle at this stage because, I mean, truthfully, so many of these 2-year-olds are trained to just blitz out of the gate and run as fast as they can for as far as they can. And that really only works for a short period of time because ultimately, you know, barring you being some kind of star, you're going to run into a horse that's faster. And if you have only that one style to use, you're going to be at a decided disadvantage when you have a horse you can rate outside of you or even show more speed to your inside. And you're now put a little bit on the opposite end of it. And you're up against it at that point. So it looks as if Bookham Dano's major threat is Shady World. And I respect Shady World's connections immensely. Carlos David has had a typically strong meet, but Shady World feels like a one-way speed horse, whereas Bookham Dano feels like a horse is going to be a lot more comfortable sitting off the pace and then making that move. He is a Jersey bred facing open company, but all the speed figures point to him being every bit as fast, if not a little bit faster than Shady World. And there's just not a heck of a lot of depth in here. The rest of the field just looks like they're of a little bit lesser caliber. And, you know, barring some kind of big move forward by a horse like maybe Bucarino, I don't know really if anybody can compete with those two. So ultimately, if it was a 2-horse race, I'm willing to take Bookham Dano at what on the fixed odds market is actually going to open as Bookham Dano being the favorite on the morning line. It's actually Shady World who's a slight favorite.
Something to monitor there for sure. Another thing I love about Bookham Dano has what our friend, professional horse player Paul Matisse calls an upline. Those sectionals getting faster throughout the course of the race. Love to see that. Love to see that.
He rolled home, no doubt about it. I mean, he really finished up last time.
In the manner of one for whom there's going to be some more improvement. We've got one more race to talk about in this segment of the show, and it's the very next one. Race number 9, Allowance on the Turf, Iona 16th. Once again, a fully subscribed field. Love to see that. How is this market shaping up, Dallas?
Yeah, it is the Nick Tamaro. As you can see on the screen, work this one out, punters. Hopefully Nick can give you a bit of a guide, but it's, you know, you can see from the numbers here, there's not much splitting half of the field, if not more. So do your best here and see how you go. I'm looking for Nick's insight, but we do have a replay again, Pete. Shady McGee, widest runner from almost the rear, made its run out wide, and you can see what happened to it on the line.
From far out of it, here's Shady McGee. Shady McGee over the top, and Ronstadt emerges in between horses. Ronstadt, Shady McGee, Ronstadt gets the victory.
Do we think is going to happen here, Nick? Who are we going to go with in this seemingly wide open contest?
Yeah, you know, really wide open race. And you and I talk a lot about horses that perform similar to the way that Shady McGee did and our kind of our interest in betting those types coming back off of trips where they rallied into slow paces. And I thought Shady McGee ran very well. To me, there were 2 horses in here that you really wanted to center your wagering activity on because, as Dallas alluded to, it being the High, Wide, and Handsome, of course, which fits is right up my alley. You could go 6 deep very quickly. So I think you have to narrow yourself down a little bit. So for me, it's really about Shady McGee, the 2, and the 11 Spites per Comet. When you're watching the replay, which you've just watched, what you're going to notice is that Spites per Comet in the red and black silks down towards the inside, about 2 paths off the rail. This horse gets caught in some very serious traffic throughout the stretch, and it was a race where the field came together. I generally have an aversion to those kind of races where it looks like 5 or 6 horses are separated by a length and a half or so. On the turf, I'm a little bit more forgiving, and this was a race run at such a slow early pace. It was going to be hard for anybody to ever get any separation. So give me Shady McGee, who I thought did the best running from off the pace, and Spicebrook Comet, whose running line really belies the performance. This is a horse who looks like he kind of one-paced it all the way around there, but that short comment in the running line, tight stretch, check late, every bit of that happened, and it certainly worked to his detriment when all was said and done.
Let me see if I have this right. We need to explain this for the uninitiated. High, wide, and handsome. Fantastic term. I've never heard it with the fixed odds in England. It must be an Australian thing. But if I understand it right, high, the favorite is a relatively high price. You're not dealing with a serious shorty. You're dealing with, I don't know what the limit for that would be, but 3 to 1 or higher, let's say. Wide, there are a lot of horses, what they call in the betting, shorter type numbers, very contentious. And handsome in that it's a very attractive proposition to the punter. Did I get my how to speak Australian lesson right?
Yeah, Pete, what we did, we came up with all these sayings before we got the water and the electricity on. So we've got a lot of great sayings. We're just catching up with the modern conveniences. Yeah. So I think you explained it perfectly, mate.
Who needs Duolingo when you have Australian pals to learn other languages?
Well, see how you go on the spruik then. What are we selling this week, Pete? Before we say goodbye to Nick and move.
Oh, absolutely. It's not a going out of business sale, but it is a coming to the end of the season sale. And plus, if you act now, we've got a lot more racing for you coming up in the show. Just a reminder what that means: sign-up bonuses, returning player bonuses, and promotions on races that qualify. Basically, if your race has 6 or more, you're going to have a chance to get your money back if your horse runs in underneath. You can get all the details on the website. Did I leave anything out?
Perfect, mate. That's all right. You've honorary Australian, mate. Well done.
And we've got a lot more great stuff coming up right now. Next up on the show, we take a look at a stakes-laden card in Virginia, Colonial Downs. It's Virginia Derby Day, and we bring in a man who has followed this meet as closely as any handicapper in the country. He's been a regular guest of mine on the podcast side. He writes daily over at inthemoneypodcast.com, and I know he's very excited to talk about this card from a fixed odds point of view. From In the Money Media, it's Michael Domable. Michael, how are things?
Things are great, Pete. Only a couple more days at Colonial Downs, closing day Saturday. Sad to see it go, but it's been a really fun meet, and excited to talk about these races a little different perspective. Use a couple different handicapping muscles here with the fixed odds breakdowns.
Dallas, I know we have our promotions similar to the ones we discussed in the last segment for Monmouth going on here. If you want to remind folks about those.
Yep, Pete. As we mentioned, the standard sign-up deposit bonus, new account $50, existing account holders $50 with the promo code 9SEPT, 9 September for the promo code if you're an existing client. But the other beautiful thing is for all of these races, same as the races that Nick spoke about, all of the races we're going to preview here have got the money back for second and third, with that caveat that we mentioned before, as long as they don't get killed by scratchings. As we've said throughout, just check the banner at the top on MonmouthBets on Saturday morning to make sure they still qualify. But if they do, and I'll just get rid of that call. Sorry about that, boys. But if they do, then you'll get, you have $50 on it. You'll get your $50 back if they run second or third. So that's not a bad way to do the business at Colonial Downs on Saturday.
Let's talk about race number 6 for starters. De Haas, named after the great Breeders' Cup Mile champion. We got 150,000 in the pot for this race. We're going 5.5 on the turf, and we're going to look at some tape. I can channel my inner Warner Wolf, an old reference for the old sports fans there, and say, let's go to the videotape as we look at potential key form line for this race. Dallas, tell us what we're looking at.
Yeah, Nobles, Pete, which is going to be your $2.20 favourite. Just quick market before we get into it. $2.20 Nobles, Super Quest $3.50, and the other next in line, Outlaw Kid $7. The only one under double figures, big Biz Buzz. Now, Nobles may well be running at Kentucky Downs, but it's still worth looking at this race in context because it gives a good lesson in form. Nobles' last start run at Saratoga, as you can see, was taken on pretty seriously in front. The key point that I saw was the odds-on favourite Caravel was right there in the action. Now, as you will see, and as we're about to cross the race, that the race is rolling over us at the moment, but you'll see that Caravel, the grey on the fence, stops very quickly as an odds-on favourite, and have a look what Nobles goes on to do.
Cogburn under Ricardo Santana Jr. wins the Troy.
It's impressive. It's impressive. The winner, Coburn, that's a serious racehorse. Cogburn, I always want to say Coburn. Cogburn, very serious racehorse. This is definitely a drop in class coming here. We'll see if he ends up here or Kentucky Downs. What does happen, Dallas, just for the record, if there's a fixed odds bet and then a scratch, a major scratch?
Look, it's
such as Noble.
It is one of the hardest things to explain to people when you say fixed odds, and so the price you get is the price you bet is the price you get. But naturally, if you're turning up at a race and you've been having a bet in the race, especially when you're talking about a horse like Nobles, which is close enough to even money, if that horse isn't in the race and you've backed a $9 chance, it's no longer a $9 chance. So if you've backed that before the scratching comes, you do face deductions, and those deductions are calculated on the price of the horse's scratched. So an even money chance, it's not quite a 50% deduction because it allows for the bookmaker's percentage in it. It's around about a 40-cent deduction for off the face value of the ticket for an even money scratching. So it's one of the things that we get the most complaints about, but it just makes mathematical sense. Like I use the example, if Usain Bolt was in the 100 meters final at the Olympic Games and he's a $1.04 favorite, and he suddenly does a hamstring walking out to the track. Well, whoever was second in betting probably at $5 is no longer a $5 chance because the $1.04 favorite is no longer there. So, I know it's hard when you've got your ticket and you see it, you go to the window, you think you're going to collect X, but you're collecting X minus. But it's the mathematics of when the field is reduced, it's not. But if you have that bet after that scratching, it's play on, because the market will then recalculate and reform with those horses not running.
And it's really the same as on the tote. When there's an even money scratch, your 4-1 is now 2-1. And also, just like the tote, if you had bet on Nobles, that just becomes a refund. Anyway, we'll see how that plays out.
The deductions allow for the refunds. Now, the way that, and this is, hopefully this gets people's head around it. What's the more fairer thing? If you've had a horse that's scratched after you've backed it, you don't get your money back, or that horse is scratched and the winner then gets a deduction to counter it. And I'm pretty sure when you look at it in the hard light of day, I know what the fairer answer is.
No doubt about it. Michael, let's bring you in for your thoughts on this race. Where are you going? What do you think of this field in general?
Yeah, I think Nobles is a likely winner if he shows up here, but I wouldn't want to take the short number on the fixed odds perspective. I would want to look for something else. If he stays here and runs, I think he could get in a little bit of a duel with Super Quest, the number 7. And that could kind of set it up for some closers. I would actually try to look to maybe use some Dutching principles and get the numbers 4 and 9, who are 8-1 and 6-1 on the fixed odds market into the mix. Maybe trying to do about 4 for every 3 units of those two. If Nobles does scratch, though, I would say that Super Quest becomes a pretty likely winner. Like Dallas mentioned, the price is going to come down a lot, but he's likely to be pretty clear on an easy lead, similar to how he was at Saratoga last time out on the Travers Day undercard, I believe it was. Yeah, the Travers Day undercard, and he just demolished that field. So those are kind of the two situations I could see playing out for this race, really dependent on what happens with the morning line favorite.
That Dutching strategy Michael mentions, very potent with fixed odds because the price isn't going to move on you. So you can know. And the idea is basically you bet on multiple possibilities. You look to return the same amount of money. Dallas, anything more on DeHaas before we move it down the line?
Just to add to what you say too, Pete, is, I know we're talking from the fixed odds premise, but you've also got the tote there too, as you get closer to it, and then you can actually go again if you've got a big overlay where it looks like you've a bit where you get confidence about where the tote price is going to settle too. So it just provides those extra options of layers. But yeah, that's race 6, and I suppose we're all hanging out to work out whether Nobles is running.
Let's go to race number 9. Meanwhile, the Virginia Oaks, of course, for these 3-year-old fillies, we're going 1.1 miles on the turf. Big purse here, $250,000. When you look at this race on paper, it looks like a bit of a match between match/rematch of the Florida Oaks runners, Mission of Joy and Alpha Bella, both turning up here. Dallas, what did you do in the market with those two, and how does the rest of it look? And then maybe we can look at that tape.
Yeah, mate, pretty much exactly as you said, Pete. $2.50 or 3-2 in the fractions for Mission of Joy, 5-2 Alpha Bella, $3.50 on the decimals. Next in line is Idea Generation, $5, and the only other under double figures are Root Cause and 30 Thou Kelvin, both at $9 or 8-1. And you mentioned the replay, Pete. Mission of Joy and Alpha Bella obviously butted heads at the Florida Oaks, and for replay watchers, have a look at this, and I challenge you to find a split hair between these runs, because they, as you can see as they're rolling there, they settled together, they made their runs together in the middle of the track, they pulled away together, and they fought it out with not much on them between the line, and this is how it ended up.
Out wide is Ticker, and amongst horses, Mission of Joy. Down at the fence, All-American Beauty in the teal colors is about 8th, but only 4 off the top. 47-4 for that opening half mile. Dreaming of Snow. Down on the inside looking for room is Fanciabella. Couldn't get through. Got shut off there. Between horses, Juniper's Moon. 3 deep here for Mohawk Trail. Ticker tape home. Starting to wind up out 4 wide. Alpha Bella's just in behind that one with Mission of Joy. Free Look is back second last and about 7 or 8 lengths behind as they wind around to the top of the stretch. Juniper's Moon between horses. Mohawk Trail in the orange colors. Those two emerge to the front. Dreaming of Snow back to third. Faciabella, Mission of Joy down the outside. Alpha Bella has a seam. Going to look between runners. Free Look has a long way to go. Mission of Joy and Alpha Bella, those are the two that go on. Alpha Bella between horses. Mission of Joy on the outside. Mission of Joy forges to a narrow advantage. Alpha Bella battles right back. They drive to the wire. Mission of Joy got it. Alpha Bella was second. Juniper's Moon.
It's an exciting prospect, this rematch. Michael, is it going to be one of those two, or can you get something a little bit longer in price in the mix here?
Yeah, I think basically looking at the fixed odds here, I wouldn't want to touch either of those at that short of a number. I talked about the Dutching principles. I think I would use them here again, and I would say, who's going to win the Virginia Oaks? I would say I hope Chad Brown wins the Virginia Oaks, because he's got 2 horses in here. Both fillies are listed at pretty solid prices in the fixed odds market. One's at 4-1 and one's at 8-1. The number 4 Idea Generation and the number 1 Root Cause. Pretty easy math on your Dutching principles here. For every 2 units you bet on Idea Generation, you'd bet 1 unit on Root Cause. Idea Generation ran into a pretty good horse in Chili Flag in her return off the break. That runner came back to run a good second in an allowance at Saratoga. So I think that one makes a lot of sense. And then Root Cause, Pete, you might get a kick out of this. The June 22nd race, JK actually called Chad Brown live on Horse Players Happy Hour to ask if he thought that Root Cause was live. And Chad had some pretty glowing things to say, amongst other things that probably weren't necessarily what he wanted to say when he didn't know he was on air.
One turf course he liked, one turf course he didn't. Let's just leave it at that.
Yes, let's just leave it at that. So hopefully Root Cause and Chad Brown like the Colonial Downs turf course. I think they will. So I would want to get some Root Cause in there as well, and kind of use those Dutching principles I talked about earlier.
And no danger mentioning JK, considering Pete's just stolen his number 1.
We are representing the business partner here. So it's a funny situation where, normally I joke and say, stop me if you've heard this one. Chad Brown holds a strong hand in a valuable turf race. But what we don't get to ever say is Chad Brown holds a valuable hand in a valuable turf race, or an important hand in a valuable turf race, but they're not going to be the favorites. And that's the big difference here, and a reason why that strategy from Michael makes so much sense in this year's Virginia Oaks. Let's go on to the Virginia Derby, the race that gives the day its name. Grade 3 action. We're going 1.1 miles. We've got a big full field. I'm very interested to hear how the fixed odds go with this one, Dallas, because I'm not even sure who the favorite is, just looking at the bare form.
Yeah, program trading's come up a favourite at the $3, actually 3 to 2. I've just made a mistake on my notes. They're actually 3 to 2.
Okay.
So $2.50 in the decimal, ahead of Salute the Stars at 5 to 2, $3.50. Mondigo next at $6, and they're the only ones under double figures, but at 10 to 1 or $11 are a Gigante, Integration, and Ari Gold. And we mentioned the favourite program trading, Pete. Sort of led all the way in the Saratoga Derby until it was gone and on the canvas halfway down the straight. And then suddenly it picked itself up and won and made it 3 from 3. And this is how it did it.
Side of him, they're at the top of the stretch. Program Trading and Web Slinger out in the center of the course. Web Slinger just in front. Program Trading fighting bravely. 2 lengths back. Far Bridge is in third, followed by Battle of Normandy. A 16th to go, and it's Web Slinger and Program Trading. Program Trading resilient coming back on the inside. Program Trading would not be denied. And what a way to stay perfect.
Impressive. This is some serious company this horse is facing. Grade 1 caliber horses like Web Slinger and Far Bridge. But in the end, Program Trading would not be denied. And yeah, as I look at it a little closer, this horse is definitely going to be your favorite in here, though I do have some respect for the likes of Salute the Stars and Mandego. Michael, who will it be for you? Will this be Chad Brown's race as well?
Well, I do think that the fixed odds perspective have it a lot closer to what's going to be on the tote than what the morning line put forth. Morning line had Program Trading at 7 to 2, but I think the 3 to 2 that Dallas and his team has Program Trading on the fixed odds perspective is a lot more likely to what we'll see on the tote. Chad Brown's other runner, the number 7 Activist Investing, is up there at 11 to 1 on the fixed odds. And I believe that he's going to come down from that off on the tote. So when I'm looking at whether I'm making a good bet from a fixed odds perspective, one of the first things I'm looking at is, am I getting a better value than what I would get otherwise in the tote? And I think Activist Investing is probably going to be about half that price in the tote. That horse has been working out in company with Program Trading. Now, I'd be lying if I said he was going as well as his more fancied rival, but at almost 8 to 10 times the price, I have to take that on the fixed odds perspective. Whether I would play him on the tote, I would have to wait to see what the price comes up, but that's too generous of a price for me to pass up.
The other Chad Brown, Michael's idea of the winner potentially for a little bit of a boil over in the Virginia Derby. Now, Michael, one thing you have shown yourself particularly proficient at in the podcast we've done, your work on InTheMoneyPodcast.com, is the 2-year-old races. So I feel like I'd be remiss if not at least getting a quick thought from you. We'll go back to races 7 and 8 for this and get a quick thought from you at least, starting with race number 7, which is the Kitten's Joy for the 2-year-olds going 1 mile and a 16th. Dallas, these have got to be the hardest races to price up of all, and the ones that could have the most divergence, I would imagine, when you're doing them well in advance, as opposed to when the actual money starts hitting the pool. How do you have this 7th race lined up? And then let's see if Michael has a winner for us.
Yeah, yes and no to that, Pete, because I think what you've got to be able to do with the 2-year-old races and lightly race, and even the horses that, even the races where you've got every horse a first starter, I think the key to it is you got to have the courage to be able to mark things at 100 to 1. And then what stuffs people up, I think, with the 2-year-old races, they're too conservative on horses. Now, obviously, you need a horse to have a start, to start knowing about it. But there's a lot of horses that may even start like in the 10 or 20 to 1 range that they're no good, and they're going to be 100 to 1 for the rest of their career. So people bemoan the times that you get that one wrong, but most of the times you're going to get it right. And, and especially if you're doing a punting market, it's a little bit different with the bookmaking market. If you're doing a punting market, you don't, if you mark something 1,000,000 to 1, it doesn't matter. It just beats you. Obviously, from a bookmaking market, if you mark something 1,000,000 to 1 and it's a 2 to 1 chance, well, guess what? We're having a very bad week. But
You're out of a job.
what you normally do with the fixed odds market is probably open them up at a higher percentage, a little bit more conservative, and let the market treat their way. But I think the key to the 2-year-old races, with a lot of the racing as well too, is having the courage to say, is this a 20-to-1 chance or is this a 100-to-1 chance? And buy that little percentage that you can then put into the favourites and make the favourites shorter, because despite what a lot of people think, the value is at the top end of the market. Buying a horse at 50-to-1, as the alarms go off, they'll stop in 1 sec. Horse at 50-to-1 isn't value if that horse is a 100-to-1 chance. But buying a horse at 2-to-1 that's an even money chance, you do your numbers and your percentages and you're betting proportionately right. That is far greater value.
Massive. And when Dallas talks about a punter's market versus a bookmaker's market, punter's market is a value line you use for betting. You want that to equal 100%. You want the implied odds probabilities to add up to 100%. That's how you make money betting. Bookmakers have it a little bit different. They have an over round, so you can build it to 110%. And obviously, you're actually taking money on that. You're not just looking for those overlays. So that difference in mentality is an important thing to understand as we talk more about fixed odds on upcoming shows. That's a great rabbit hole we went down. Wasn't particularly planning on it. Let's get back to regularly scheduled program. Michael, what was the Kitten's Joy?
It is a very wide market. TikTok's favourite 440, so essentially 7-2, 9-2 or $5.50 for massive. And then you got a stack of runners around about the $9 or $8 mark. Sharp Tones, Randazza, Manabi, Skelling Island, because the night. So very high, wide, and handsome market. The Nick Tamaro market.
Michael, what do you like?
Yeah, I think there's 2 horses on this fixed odds market that I think are going to go off significantly shorter on the tote, so I have to play them at the prices that are being offered. The first one is the number 3, Triple Espresso. Todd Pletcher, Jose Ortiz. I don't see this horse going off at 13-to-1. First-time starter for Rapoli stable. There's plenty of options for this horse to run for big purses up in Saratoga, at Belmont, at the big Belmont at Aqueduct meet. There were plenty of chances for that horse to debut in a pretty nice purse race out of his backyard, but they ship him down here and try to pull one over, I think, at in this $125,000 stakes race. It's interesting, if you go back a couple of years, there was a horse named Four Wheel Drive who debuted in the Rosie Stakes, went on to win the British Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint that same year. Kind of similar situation. Morning line was around 8-to-1, went off at 4-to-5 and aired in the Rosie Stakes. So I think, if he starts taking money on the tote and you've already got a ticket on him at 13-to-1, that's a really nice feeling to have. And then the second horse I would highlight is the number 11, Because the Night. Kind of a similar story. 12-to-1 morning line, 8-to-1 fixed odds. Could go off even shorter on the day. Brad Cox first time getting to the turf. This one actually does have some experience going a route of ground, which is something that I like to see in this 1 mile and a 16th race for juveniles. And it's a really stamina influence pedigree. Dan was a half to Princess of Silmar, and then the Uncle Mo on the top makes me think that he'll handle the transition from dirt to turf okay. So Brad Cox, Todd Pletcher, 13-to-1 and 8-to-1. I'll take that all day.
Yeah, I hear you. It makes a lot of sense. And, plus with Because the Night, you get a little Springsteen, Patti Smith hunch play. Around here, how we always like to root for those rock and roll names. Dallas, anything else on the Kitten's Joy, or should we pivot to the final race? We're going to talk about the Philly version of this race.
To the fillies, if you like, Pete, and it's pretty much a condensed market again, but a little bit more of a defined favourite. No Nay Mets is your $3 favourite or 2-to-1, ahead of King Conti at $4.40 or 7-2, and to pay $5.50 or 9-2 on the old.
No Name Mets, who ran at Ascot, went back to winning ways at Monmouth, and does seem well spotted here at this 5.5 distance in that aforementioned Rosie Stakes we were just talking about. Michael, don't know if we're going to have any Breeders' Cup Turf Juvenile Sprint runners in here, but hopefully we can find a winner. Who do you like?
Yeah, I wouldn't talk anybody off taking No Name Mets at the 2-to-1 fixed odds. I could see him going off shorter than that. Just got a really solid bit of form. That last line beat Ship Cadet in the Tyro Stakes at Monmouth. That horse came back to win an off the turf version of the Skidmore Stakes at Saratoga, and this colt dominated him in that race. George Weaver's 2-year-olds are hitting on all cylinders this year. So I wouldn't hate anyone who took the 2-1 and then had that ticket handy before he goes off at much shorter than that. But I can't resist taking the number 11 Air Recruit. Now, I don't know if the 5-1 is enough. That's kind of where it's like fixed odds. I might play No Name Mets. In the tote, I might play Air Recruit because that race he comes out of, the number 11 Air Recruit, that's proven to be an extremely key race. The third place finisher Seagal came back to win an open maiden special weight at Saratoga. 3 also rans came back to improve their figures, and just today, the numbers Shards came back to win the nightcap at Colonial Downs by daylight. So that's proving to be a solid piece of form. And the last point on him is he's actually shown that he can sit in pass runners when this race has a few speed balls that could hook up early on. And this Arnaud Delacour second-time starter might be the one to pick him off late.
Couple of great ideas in there. I made a mistake introing this race. I said the fillies version. I meant the sprint version of the Kitten's Joy. Is this Rosie's? Great stuff from you, Michael. Some excellent thoughts as well, Dallas. Really appreciate all the work everybody put in on this segment. And we're going to be back with more content right after this. Up next on the show, we look to some other places where you can bet fixed odds on Monmouth Bets, and we look specifically to Minnesota and Canterbury Park. And to do that with us, we bring in an analyst whose opinion I always want to hear, but especially when it comes to Canterbury, where she is a real expert on the local form. She is Angela Herman. Angela, how are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm excited for Saturday. So thanks for having me on to talk a little bit about it.
Only a few days of racing left at Canterbury, but some really good stuff and possibly some prices to catch on this Saturday card. First race we're going to talk about is race number 4 for these 2-year-old filly Minnesota breds. We got a little stake, not that little, 100,000 in the pot, going 6 furlongs on the dirt. Dallas, what are we looking at here in terms of the market?
We have an odds-on favourite here in Extreme Diva at the $1.80 mark, $3.50 in decimal odds, which is 5-2 or 4 to 5, I should say, in the fractional odds for Extreme Diva for those who don't speak decimal. Next in the market at 3-1 or $4 is Go Leanne Go. And I believe I have to mention on speed dial 9-2 morning line, but the price that we're looking to put up, and remembering as we mentioned throughout the show, these are the prices on Thursday night, so they can evolve. On speed dial, $17, if you don't mind. And I think that's going to provide you with a very nice segue, Mr. Fornatal.
Indeed. $70, aka 16-1. And Angela, this is one that you have your eye on. What's the case for on speed dial?
Well, I would think that on speed dial is a horse that might get ignored because we haven't seen her in a little bit. She came to hand very early. She won one of the earlier 2-year-old races. And sometimes you can get a good price on a horse that's just been out of sight and out of mind. And even though I respect Extreme Diva, I did pick her. I used her in the mix. I think that on speed dial probably at those odds would be a little bit more of an appealing play because the talent's there. It's just how far she's come since that maiden win. And I think that she's got a lot of room to improve. And I think that she will probably on Saturday.
$16 all right for you at that price?
Sounds good to me. Yeah, I would definitely take that on her. I think that there's a lot of talent there. And I think that if she runs the way that she did at first asking, even close to it, you won't see that price on her in a while. So I would definitely take that.
Another thing you can do here is mix and match. You can take that fixed odds price. You can mess around with exactas on the tote and try to get the best of both worlds. One of the things we love about the fixed odds movement is that ability to play in multiple markets. Let's move right on to the very next race. Race number 5, we've got Minnesota bred allowance types going 7.5 on the turf. Field of 8 going postward. Dallas, what does it look like here in terms of the market?
Yeah, the 8 is the favourite. Colour Me Legendary at 2-1 or $3 in the decimals. Just ahead of Midnight Royal. Pretty competitive market here, Pete. Midnight Royal 5-2 or $3.50. And the next two are 7-2 or $4.40 because $4.50 doesn't exist in the decimal world. That's Arvo's Taboo and West Island.
All right, Angela, this was the second race where you wanted to play. Where are you looking here?
I am looking to the inside. The next couple will actually be rail horses. Not usually something that I would go after, but Gabriel's Legend is a horse that usually runs a big race right around this time of the year. And I think that he's caught a lot of dirt sprinters on the stretch out. And Gabriel's Legend will probably be able to take advantage of that from the inside. Kelsey Haar loves to skim the rail as long as possible. I would expect maybe something to open up for her either on the far turn or in the stretch. And no matter where you wanted to use Gabriel's Legend, you will probably get an overlaid price if it goes the way that you guys think it will. And I think that Gabriel's Legend, no matter where you find him in the exotics, adds value to it.
What price would you like Gabriel's Legend? Would 12 to 1 or $13 be okay for you?
That would be just fine for me. I mean, really anything over 5 or 6 to 1, his morning line, I think would be pretty good to me.
Well, MonmouthBets, $12 to 1 or $13, whatever way you want to say it. That sounds like overlay for you and huge value for those following you.
Absolutely. I really like Gabriel's Legend, especially in that neighborhood. No, yeah, anywhere in that price range would be very appealing.
Some juice in the odds. That's what we like to see. One more play to talk about. You put your hand as to which number it is. You look at the market, but don't look at the horse. You go to race number 9. Minnesota Bird. 6 furlongs on the dirt. What do we have in terms of the
not the favourite though. The favourite is
big race no matter what. And I think that if you can get that ahead of time,
downloading
that's
that
the place
first
to
one, are
utilize
you?
those sort of odds.
Well, MonmouthBets go then, isn't it, Pete?
It's a great
Cool.
point. The odds you bet are the odds you get. Angela, thanks for joining us. Dallas, any closing words?
Well, thank you, Angela, for jumping on board. And a big hello to all the people at Canterbury. I know it's been a bit of a tough year with some funding issues that they've got, but Canterbury has always been a track that really, really tries. And they're great people up there. They're not scared to innovate. And I think that, hopefully they can, get through what was a bit of a challenging year, get through a couple of course closures coming up. That's not going to really help them at all. But there's the right team there and they have a great attitude towards marketing racing. So a big hello to all of our friends up at Canterbury and hope you have a successful closing out to the season and onward and upward for next year.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'll pass that along. It has been a very different sort of summer, but we've tried to make the most of it. And I think we'll do the same on Saturday. And hopefully this helps people make a little bit of money and have some fun right along with us.
Thanks, everybody. Last but not least, we head to Jamaica. And we've got a few really interesting races to talk about down there. The man who's going to be giving his expert opinions. He's a form expert. He's an ace price assessor. He's Naresh Nagrani. Naresh, how are you tonight?
I'm pretty good. You?
Things are good, man. I'm excited about this weekend of racing. Before we prevail upon you for your ideas of the winners and some value in some of these races, I wanted to talk a little bit more generally about Caymanas Park and Jamaican racing, which is starting to come on the radar in a very big way in the USA. Dallas, you've been down there for a few months now. What is it that's special about this place? What do American punters need to know?
I've got to say, Pete, and I've been lucky enough to be around the world covering racing, working in racing, and you and I are blessed to be able to do that. I don't think I describe Jamaica as probably the most fun I've ever had at the races. the crowd, as Naresh will tell you, is just so engaged. And it's like almost going back to when everybody went to the races to go to the races. That's what they're there for. They're not there for any side shows or anything like that. They are there to watch the races and bet on the races. Naresh, you would say that, as in the punting culture, pound for pound, there's probably no one who beats a Jamaican pound for pound in the betting culture on horse racing.
I agree. That's something I've witnessed since I was a kid. And I would say if you took then and let everybody sit on the grass and had no refreshments or food, you'd have the same crowd and the same betting atmosphere.
Yeah, it's
right?
just
So I think that says it all.
It's
right?
amazing. Like the noise, like, you know, like I remember the first time when I saw a race live here and the racers jumped and you hear all this commotion and I'm watching the race. I thought, is there a fight broken out or whatever? But no, it's just the crowd cheering like it's the last 100 of the Kentucky Derby from the moment the gates open on a $180,000 claiming Jamaican race, which is about a 5,000 US claiming race. Like, it's just unbelievable. And you know, when the stewards make the wrong decision according to the crowd and all of that, well, then you really hear about it. And then if we do something wrong with the fixed odds boards, I've got to dodge red stripes being thrown at me. It's just awesome. It really is. It's just a great culture.
Die hard. That's the word. Die hard.
Die hard. And really, and look, obviously it's not racing at Royal Randwick from my point of view, or Flemington on Cup Day or whatever, but it's really good racing. It's usually pretty formful. There's a lot of tricks to it. It's old school form too. It's pen and paper and get out dashes and crosses and all that sort of business. But it's really good fun. And you know, even though I'm only middle-aged, I think, but I'm a bit of a dinosaur when it comes to that sort of thing. So I love that. You know, bring back the paper tickets, bring all that shit back, and I'm very, very happy with it. But anyway, and I'm going to say Naresh is not only obviously has become a great friend and colleague, but as sharp as anyone is that I've ever met when it comes to form assessing and pricing. And I've been involved with the best in the world. And Naresh is equal to all of them when it comes to assessing Caymanas Park. So hopefully, punters, you can take some of Naresh's information here and turn it into some winners at Caymanas Park by betting on MonmouthBets.
Get the pen and paper ready. Take some notes here. Fixed Odds been very well received by the Jamaican crowd. I know that as well. Naresh, I know we're going to start off right at the beginning here. You have something for us in race number 1.
Well, actually, what I have for you here is not really a horse per se, but more like a betting strategy, right? Because as you know, in the fixed odds, you know, it provides you the opportunity of hedging bets and locking in profits and those sort of things. So you don't necessarily need to bet one horse. You could actually turn a 4-to-1 horse into a 3-to-1 horse, or a 4-to-1 horse into a 2-to-1 horse, and hedge your bet. So we're going to try something like that in race number 1. So number 3, Neostar, is a 4-year-old maiden running for the second time who gets Lasix and likely will be at $2, which is even money. But we're actually going against him. So we're going number 5, Millennium Star, who was already won at the level but was disqualified. But we'll report shape here, and we're getting probably an estimated price of, say, 480, which is like 7-2. So what we're going to do is go to a win bet on the head with Millennium Star and bet back Neo Star, just to cover ourselves, just in case he beats us. And he's an unexposed horse, and those type of horses usually will have over horses that have run 1,000,000 times. So that's our strategy there. Try and beat the favorite, but if the favorite wins, another player.
Getting money back, recouping some of those investments, such an important thing to do.
Absolutely.
How's the market looking overall, Dallas?
The market overall, yeah, as Naresh said, at the moment, Neostar is just a touch of odds on $1.80, Millennium Star $4.40, but those prices will loosen up as we get closer to it. So what Naresh said is probably going to be right, about that $2 mark and a couple of rolls out Millennium Star. But what Naresh said is 100% right, is that it's not just about backing the winner, it's the strategy. Now, knowing how all the big betting houses bet, they'll try to back every runner in the race if they can get the best price, the right price. So it really does come down to price shopping and trying to secure that best price. And backing multiple runners in the race is usually how the successful people keep on being successful in the fixed odds world.
Yeah, it's so different in a lot of ways than what you can approach with the tote. We've also talked about using tote strategies to help arbitrage essentially these fixed odds markets. It's such an exciting new product to get involved in, and these are just some of the reasons why. Let's go ahead to the 7th race on the card, one that is very exciting in prospect. On paper looks like it might be a match between She's My Destiny and Runaway Algo. How do you see this one, Naresh?
Before can I just touch back on what you just said a while ago?
Of course.
Standpoint, a lot of times you will think that a horse is going to end up at 2 to 5, and you don't bother to bet it because 2 to 5 is kind of small, and you'll pick a different horse just because in anticipation, and the major odds shifts that go on right before races and all of that kind of thing. What fixed odds, the part I love about it the most, the odds doesn't influence your betting, right? So a lot of times you'll see a horse win at 4 to 5, and you'll say, wow, if I knew that horse was going to get 4 to 5, I thought he would get 1 to 5, I would have bet it, right? But now it takes away from some of that influence, and that's one of the things that punters relies on, especially as we spoke about that hedging.
Yep, lovely.
So
7, the battle for bragging rights for the best sprinter in Jamaica, Naresh, as Pete alluded to.
Yeah, what's funny is that Runaway Algo and She's My Destiny are 2 of the top sprinters, but She's My Destiny is more of a raw, flat out sprinter, and Runaway Algo is more like a pace kind of sprinter. So it'll be interesting to see how he runs like flat out 6 furlongs against She's My Destiny. But he's a stronger horse, and I think if you actually get $2, which is his price right now, then that would be a good bet, being a colt and being the quote-unquote stronger horse. So I think we'll go with Runaway Algo at $2.
And as Naresh said, Runaway Algo, even money, $2, whatever you want to say it, and She's My Destiny, $2.70, and they dominate the market. King Arthur, the next in line at $4.80.
One more race to talk about, race number 8. Before we get to you, Naresh, let's take an overview of this market, Dallas. What are we looking at in terms of favoritism, and how deep does it go?
Password and Mr. Senator are your equal favourites at $2.40, so roughly 3 to 2. And they are ahead of Super Alex at $8 or 7 to 1, and Waterman John at $9 or 8 to 1. And we should say Mr. Senator comes off losing a protest by winning by 5 lengths, running away, and destroyed our book in doing so. So let's not talk about that too much, because I still haven't got over it.
We can tell. We can tell.
Yes.
Who's going to get the money?
I love this race. I absolutely love it because I have this terminology that I use called like a fraud favorites, right? And Mr. Senator comes off that facile win at the level where he was disqualified, but he had everything going his way that day. He had a great pace setup, much longer trip, and prior to that, he had really done nothing. So he might be severely overbet, even though he did get blinkers last time, which, can make a world of difference and probably did for him. Password had 2 rough trips in his 2 starts, and, those horses are always overbet. So we're going here with Super Alex, who's definitely going to be at least maybe $8 to $10 on the tote, probably maybe even more in the fixed odds. But Super Alex showed good form sprinting, and then he changed up a lot of his equipment, and they threw him against the Wolves in the Jamaica Derby. So he went from not going past 6 furlongs to 12, and he ran much better than it appeared to be with all of that change of equipment. And back going 7.5 furlongs, I think maybe he can get to the lead and get into the bit and make every post a winning one.
Lovely. So a bit of value there from Naresh, eight around about the $8-10 mark. So Super Alex to beat the favourites there, Pete.
Bold call to close things out on the show. Want to thank Naresh again. We'll thank all of today's guests. Thank you as well, Dallas, for putting this all together. It's going to be a great Saturday of racing. MonmouthBets. That's the place you want to go. There are sign-up bonuses. There are special promotions. You've heard us talk about them throughout. You can check out much more on the website where you can get an account in a number of minutes. Until the next time, I'm Peter Thomas Fornital. May you win all your fixed odds photos.